There is nothing practical about vinyl records, or analog, or cassettes, or pretty much any other format other than CD. Those aren't really practical either nowadays. Why do we do this? Despite these things not being very practical, from an enthusiast perspective, why should you get into vinyl records? I have some examples. People say, that you can hear like a difference in the quality of albums or music on vinyl as opposed to digital copies on CD. When in reality, I mean, that's just old, essentially a distortion. And a lot of people will know this. I mean, Geddy Lee said essentially that the warmth of vinyl or sound that you get from vinyl, it's not really anything special from the record itself, but it's actually a distortion that you have grown fond to and nostalgic of because you no longer have that on newer platforms and mediums. And I mean, well, really, CDs, digital pressings, digital masters, etc. I tend to agree with people like Geddy Lee. I would claim that if you can hear the difference with vinyl, that most of the time you're probably lying. There's certain different pressings. You could take Led Zeppelin 2, there are hot pressings of it. And a hot pressing is essentially when the guy doing the mix hasn't cut out the highs or has left in things that they were supposed to cut out. In certain mixes of records, usually stuff will get left out on the cutting floor that could damage home speaker systems. So they would cut out the highs so you're not blowing your speakers, etc. And that's just one example, and we could probably do a full episode on hot pressings alone. But for example, I have here 5 copies of Peace Sells But Who's Buying, different years, different releases. This, I believe, was a 2014 picture disc. The 2008 Capitol Records, like Vault, etc. version. These are the 2004 remasters, same as the picture disc. This one, I believe, is a late 80s copy, early 90s. Here we have another cassette pressing that is most likely, I believe, a club edition remix. And here we have the combat mix done by Randy Burns. This is probably the most expensive cassette I've bought, and was more expensive than any of those. This is like a $100 cassette. And why did I buy this? Because I'm very stupid. If you have 2 of the same mixes, play them side by side, you might spot minute differences depending on the copy you have, your system, etc. But if you play 2 different mixes next to each other, you're going to say, wow, that sounds crazy or huge. But in reality, this is Paul Lanny and this is Randy Burns, and that's the only real difference there. Why should you get into vinyl? Why should you care? I think the dichotomy of music over the years has changed. It changes in between formats. You go from reel-to-reel to 8-track to cassette to vinyl to CD, and then finally you have the biggest jump, which is in digital downloading into streaming. Nowadays, I use Spotify almost every single day. And I think that's how most people are. Convenience is very key nowadays, and that's fine. Spotify, and that would be, for me, I use Spotify to, find a lot of new music. If I like an artist, but I'm not really a huge fan of all of their stuff, I'll listen to some tracks on Spotify. Whereas if I really love an artist, I'm buying the physical CDs or records or cassettes. Why do you get these records really from that? Because I think what it is actually being able to hold and look at, and this is a statement that a lot of people have made, I'm sure, but being able to hold the stuff in your hands and actually own a damn piece of the music, even if, to your ear, it doesn't discern, you can't discern really the quality of the music better than a CD or Spotify release of it. I think it's still cool. If you really love an artist, buy and support physical mediums, and just in general, support music. A lot of albums I'll buy are from local bands or just friends. People say, hey, I just put out an album. It's like, all right, how much? I think there's value in owning music and displaying it in the same way that you have books on a shelf. As for this channel, this is on the flip side. This will, I'm assuming, be the first video going up. Really the focus here is analog music reviews in general. We may do CDs occasionally, just depending on release, on if we can actually get a digital or a analog copy of something. I mean, not everyone, like I said, is going to release a cassette or a record. Records are expensive to press. Cassettes are cheap, but who the hell is doing cassettes? I want cassettes. Release more cassettes. I like them, please. The main focus is just going to be records, not necessarily new releases. I'm sure we'll do stuff that has come out, pretty quickly. We'll do old stuff, new stuff, everything in between. Pretty much any genre I'm feeling at the time. Most of it's going to be like, hey, what do I feel like listening to? Like, oh yeah, that'll be good to cover. The format is essentially introductions, assumptions on what is going on with the record. Have I listened to it before? Have I got any idea what I'm going to be getting into? And then we're going to be covering side one. We'll pause since YouTube is not really cool about their copyrighted music stuff. I will pause essentially, and you guys can listen along if you want to side one. Then we will come back and talk about it, cover all of the bases, all the songs, tracks, highlights, etc. as lows. And then we will do the same with side two, come back, talk about it some more, maybe give some final thoughts, and go from there. I believe that all covers it. And I want to just thank Sean Parvey of Project Osea for being cool about letting us use some old loops of his for the tracks for these videos. He is in a group, like I said, Project Osea. They play the Roxy in Denver every month. I would highly recommend supporting them. They're great people. It's Sean and Jordan. They're wonderful. I'll put a link to them, their Facebook page and their YouTube in the description. Other than that, if you would like to keep up with the show, I have an Instagram. It's called On the Flip Side Show. It's all one word. You can follow me there, and we'll keep you updated. I will post recent acquisitions, etc. there, and you can check it out. Depending on how big this gets, we may or may not get into Patreon, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you later.